everybody, if you are looking for a game call that is elk, turkey, deer, predator calls, waterfowl calls, we highly recommend PhillipsGameCalls.com. Professional grade game calls made for every hunter.
Welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, with your hosts, David Crane and David Sandana.
All right, everybody. What just happened? There we go. Am I on?
No, I don't hear you. I don't hear.
Are you plugged in? You're not plugged in, it's the deal.
Oh, that's it.
Yo, that's not your cord. Your cord's over there.
Back here.
We're getting figured out here in real time. See, I do that sometimes. You see if he's on his toes.
Yeah, there you go.
Got me.
There you go. He's in the game now.
Now we're back in here. Now you can hear me. All right, everybody. We are back. We have a special guest, Ross Sharp. He is back here in the Kill Cave.
I don't know about special, but
Well,
glad to be back anyway.
Well, that's awesome. We are an hour late from our time that we wanted to be in here and recording, so we're kind of frantically trying to get everything going, and I forgot to plug in my mic, so that's always awesome.
Yeah, Ross has been doing some special things lately, working with some entities on our Washington State spring bear issues we have going on. And Ross also just came back from a hunt in Utah. Did you tag out?
I did.
Big whopper.
It was a good time.
Yeah, if anybody follows Ross or the Crazy Elk Company's Facebook or Instagram or even on YouTube, you'll definitely be seeing what we're talking about. But if you've been on those social media platforms, you'll definitely know what we're talking about. And we're talking about a giant bull in Utah.
Giant is relevant.
It's giant for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice bull. Yeah, it's a nice bull. I'm really happy about it. Yeah, it was a surreal trip.
So how did it get started? Like, what was this something you guys decided to go out on your own?
So how it got started was I was approaching 50, and I've been on a couple guided hunts in Canada for moose, but I've never been on a guided elk hunt, and I wanted to do, and I was looking around I wanted to do a backcountry horse, type thing. And just to kind of cross it off the bucket list. And so I was just kind of looking around. And I had a guy a few years ago reach out to me, Steve. He owns Lone Ridge Outfitting. And we've been doing some kind of like cross-promotional stuff. And I've been giving them tag wallets. And then he gives them to his customers that come in and stuff. And we've been doing that for, I don't know, going on 3 years now. Anyway, when I was approaching 50, I'm like, man, I want to do a backcountry elk hunting. So I reached out to him and said, hey, what do you got? And he does a lot of like the Wasatch, like the once in a lifetime tags that you get down there. And then he also has like a spike unit. And I'm like, I'm looking for, I want to do a horse backcountry horse thing. He's like, he goes, I have that too. He's like, I don't do that myself, but I have a guy that works for me that I can hook you up with. And so that started the planning. And then my buddy Brandon, he turns 50 a little bit after me, and he's like, well, I want a 50th birthday too, So I called Steve and I said, hey, can we add one more to the list? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so yeah, it was a guided hunt, but it was over the counter. It didn't need to be a draw or anything. And
okay, put time out.
Okay.
It's an over-the-counter tag.
Yes.
For
any bull.
Any bull.
Yep.
Dang.
Yeah,
So what I would have done,
I'm going to need the insight on that because everything I've seen has been like spike units only. So we're not going to say anything about that. We'll get the detail after. I mean, obviously, there's people out there that use Go Hunt or whatever to find these tags. I'm not that savvy in any of that stuff. So when I can get tidbits, I'm going to get it. So
like. I'm not supposed to say where we went.
Of course, no Tellum Creek, right? Yeah.
Like we on our way in when we got to the trailhead. Actually, even going into the trailhead, we passed tons of motorhomes, tons of trailers, wall tents, all just pitching off the side of the road. And then we got finally to where the trailhead is, and we couldn't even park in the parking lot because there was too many horse camps or horse trailers and trucks there. And so we ended up having to come back about half a mile, and we just parked off the side and then got out and then had to walk our way back through when we got on the horses. But when we went in, we saw a couple camps, and he explained, like, most people go up this drainage, and sure shit, when we were going, you could tell that the trail divides, and a lot of traffic was going that way, but not a lot of traffic was going the way we were going. And I would say we passed a couple camps. The last camp we passed was these guys with some llamas.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you right now, horses do not like llamas.
That's fearing for their job.
Oh, well, they just don't like. They could smell them before they saw them, and they were acting different, and they got a little surly.
Yeah.
And those guys saw us coming, and they came out, to talk to us and asked us where we were going. And, Braden, the guy we were with, he told him someplace, I don't know what the name of it was. And I don't even know if it was the right place that he was telling where he was going. We talked to them for a little bit, but the whole time, my horse was not happy because those llamas were right there, And they didn't calm down until we at least got a couple hundred yards away. Oh, and he explained, he's like, yeah, horses do not like llamas. They just don't like them. Anyway, so we just kept going up in the mountains, and we were on the horses for a long time, and then we finally hit snow. And when we hit the snow, because we hadn't seen the track for a long time, all of a sudden we saw these human track prints in the snow, and we are back there. I think at this point, when we hit the snow, we were like 10 miles probably. And we all looked at each other, and I'm like, he's got to be walking for a bit with his horse. But there was no horse tracks or anything. It was just one single track going up this trail.
So someone was putting in some work.
And Braden, he just came out of there like 3 days prior. And he's like, these weren't here before. Anyway, we got up there, and I don't remember what mileage marker we were at, but we ended up running into him on the trail. And we just stopped and we were talking to him, and sure shit, he was, had his pack, and he was huffing it. And I'm like, well, that's pretty awesome that you can get back here on, this far. But then Braden, he looked at him, and he's like, are you by yourself? And he's like, yeah. He's like, what are you going to do if you get an elk?
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's not very good planning.
From how far in we were, he's like, because the weather report, there was a storm that came in before we got there, and in the window we were in there, it was like super clear. We had no precipitation. It was like, blue skies. It was like, actually, it even got pretty darn warm. Like I was in a t-shirt sometimes. And he's like, if you get an elk down out here, he says, for you to take all the meat that you should be taking back, he's like, you're looking at least 5 to 6 days by yourself. I mean,
that's grueling. Yeah.
That guy was going to be put from where we were at. I want to say he was probably going to be putting in 30 miles a day.
Wow.
If he was to go
back
there
and
back,
yeah.
Unless he was just going to go there, spend the night, and then come back the next day, grab a little, but still. And he kind of gave the guy a ration of shit. He's like, it's kind of irresponsible of you to, to do that out here.
Well, just the waste alone. Right. I mean, how much meat are you going to lose? Yes, the weather did come in. You can do your best to keep it cool.
Right.
But what about the critters too? So I mean, it's, even if you put it up in the air, something could still go and get something.
Right.
So 30-mile round trip one way, or one back and forth, right?
It'd be 20. It'd be 20 back and forth, but you also don't know where that bull's going to go down, number one.
Right.
So you're 10 miles in.
Well,
who knows where...
We were 10 miles in when we saw his track. We were farther in.
Yeah, they were like, you said it's about 30 miles round trip.
Yeah, nope.
So you're sitting here going, okay, I'm in great shape. I'm just going to hike up there. You go on 15 miles, shoot an animal, you hike out 15 miles, you go back 15 miles. That's going to be 100 miles, in a short period of time.
Yeah.
With a load, or uphill going in and coming out heavy downhill or whatever it is.
Right.
It's almost unhumanly possible.
And the bottom.
Well, I mean, people do it. I wouldn't recommend it.
100 miles. I mean.
Yeah. I don't. Anyway.
By the time the meat if the meat spoils, but whatever. To each his own, I guess.
We sat there and talked to him for a little while, and he was from Ohio originally, but now lived in Utah, I think, for like 3 years. And anyway, we ended up leaving because we had a target we wanted to get to,
Yeah.
And we set up our camp, and we got up there, and I knew, and I've heard things about elevation, sickness, and dealing with the altitude. So our camp, we were about 10,800 feet. Our camp was at.
Wow,
it's up there, man.
And when we were on the horses, I had no problem breathing or anything. But then once we started like setting up camp and moving around, I'm like, whew, this is something,
Yeah.
And then we decided to, after camp was set up, because the season didn't start till the next day, so we went to go for a little scouting hike just to see if we could put some eyes on something in a location. And me and Brandon, we were laboring. I mean, I started getting a headache, and Braden, I had a hard time throughout the week too, because I had Brandon, my friend, and then Braden, the guy. It was like, I kept crossing him back and forth, but he's been up there since like the beginning of August when their archery season start, and he's 29, and he's just flying like I would if I was here, right?
Yeah.
But we're like, hey man, you slow down a little bit, He was good about it, but yeah, we just eventually we're like, we're not going to go at his pace. We're just going to go at our pace. And I would say it took me a day and a half to 2 days, and I finally got acclimated. My buddy Brandon didn't fare as well. He did okay, but he went on this hunt for an adventure. He wanted to try something new. Going into it, he's never been on a horse before, not really a horse person. And after we left the trip, he's like, that was cool. I don't ever want to be on a horse again, no. And I don't ever want to be at that elevation. But, yeah, it was a cool trip. And if you guys are interested, and I can hook you up with Steve, he's the guy to talk to.
Well, our birthdays are only like a month apart too, and we're going to be pushing 50, sooner than later. So,
right,
why not?
Yeah,
make it a 50 trip.
Well, we're going to do it a little differently than they did it, because I already thought about this. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go for your birthday, and I'll just say I'm going with Dave for his birthday, and then you'll go for my birthday. So we'll do back to back.
That sounds perfect.
You could have doubled down on that trip, but your buddy doesn't want to go anyway.
Oh, right.
So that's the only thing. I could be like, hey, babe, I'm going for my 50th and 51st. If it's a milestone deal,
right.
We could celebrate yours, then we'll celebrate mine. So we can get two for one.
Yeah.
Kind of game the spouses on that one. But it's Dave's 50th.
Right.
Can't miss it with the fellers.
Right, for sure.
So I just put up a picture of the bull.
And I am completely in the way, so I'm actually going to step away.
Well, we're just jumping right to it, huh?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, so the first day when it actually, we got up early, and we were sitting right. We just went right by our camp where we could oversee this huge valley, and we didn't really see anything. And we called. Also the main trip, the reason for the trip was I wanted to hunt rifle during the rut, right? And we went. Our hunt started on October 6th, and was going until October 13th. And we figured, well, it'd be the tail end rut, but they should still be rutting. Here in Washington, they were just getting going, really,
Yeah.
But we got out there, didn't hear a peep. We were called and didn't hear anything. Then we went for a little hike, and then just as we turned this corner, about 2 miles away, we saw these bulls, a couple of them crossing this ridge. And so we went to go make a play for them, and it took us, I don't know, an hour or so to get up there. And we get up to where they should be, and there's nothing there. We're like, what the heck? Well, I was already, the sun was coming up, and I was wearing that and another coat, and I'm like, oh, man, I got to peel this stuff off. So I forgot to tell you this. The trip started out kind of like I was a mess. And what I mean by that was I had my bino harness on me, and then usually I let my phone, because I have the Alaska Guide series bino harness, and it has that little flap in
shelf,
there. Yeah, a little shelf, and I just let my phone in there. Well, when I'm hiking and stuff, it's not a problem, right? Well, the first time the horse jumps this little puddle of water, we start going, and I'm like, oh man, that's really pretty. I want to get a picture of it, right? I go to look for my phone, and it's gone.
Oh man,
no.
I'm like, oh my Lord. So I said, hey Braden, my phone's gone. And so we backtrack. It was only like 50 yards behind us, thank goodness.
Oh yeah.
And so he gets down there and grabs it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put that in my pocket now. I'm not going to keep it in there. And then we go to this other creek, and my horse jumps again. Well, on my backpack, I have a cotton carrier, and I had my Canon camera in the cotton carrier. Well, that jolt, like when we landed, I almost caught my camera in the air, right? No. But I didn't. And then it landed in, it didn't land in the creek, but it landed in this wet, mucky crap. I'm like, crap. I'm like, okay, stop my horse. And I get off to go get it. And then I grab my camera, I put it back on, I get back on the horse. And then we're going. Well, then I'm wanting to take some GoPro footage.
Yeah, all these, hit every single device you could have to get a photo and everything.
So my GoPro clips to my backpack right here. Well, apparently, when I got off my horse to get my Canon, it fell off somewhere and nobody noticed it. Yeah.
Oh,
right?
Man.
So it's like, man. So Braden's like, I think at this point, he's like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
He's like, give me all your stuff. I'm going to hold it for you.
Right. He's like, what did I get myself into? So he goes, he was probably gone, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then he finally came back and he had it. And so then I put it in a more secure location, because mine just has a bendable like wand, and then it has a clip.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
Like a vice type thing.
Dave uses that.
Yeah. Yep.
So this
mine's is a little bit sturdier than that, but it's just a
there's the clip one.
Oh, yeah. It's just like that. Anyway. So then finally I got it all, everything else I told you we ran into that guy, we got to camp. First morning, I take off because I'm getting warm, so I said, hey, I got to peel this stuff off. Well, as soon as I'm starting to peel off my coats, all of a sudden a bull bugles, like just a couple 100 yards. We're like, shoot, we must have went this way, and it went, this way, and we just missed it somehow. So we're in this frantic, okay, let's go. So I pack all my stuff in my bag, and we go after the elk. Well, at this point in my mind, I'm like, my buddy Brandon has never shot a bull before. And so I'm like, I want him to have first dibs. And his thing was, he doesn't really care about size. He didn't want to shoot a spike. He's like, but I'll shoot a raghorn. So if it's a raghorn, I'll shoot it. And if it's bigger, then you shoot it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, we'll just see how it plays out. But I said, but I really want you to get the first bull. And so that was kind of the deal. So I went to go grab my GoPro so I could film him as we're trying to cut off this bull. You know, he's above us, and we can tell he's moving. So we kind of went on a cutoff course because he wasn't really answering our calls. He was just doing his thing. Can't find my GoPro. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, hey guys, lost my GoPro. I said, I'll have to go back up that top of that hill sometime, you know, today or during the trip. I just counted it as a loss and just used my cell phone and my Canon. Anyway, we get up to where that, the cutoff point, and I was a little bit behind Brandon and Braden at this point. And they kind of made a big last push through these trees as quick as they could because they didn't want to be super loud. And then all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, right on, he got one, right? And I walk up there, and it was they had a really narrow window, and I don't know, it was like 100-yard offhand shot in between, you know, this 10-yard window in between these trees, and these cows were going through, and then the bull came through, but it came in a little quicker than the cows were, and he just missed. I mean, 100-yard offhand shot's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, shanked it.
Right. So then, yeah, we went back to camp, and then had some lunch and talked about plans, and then we went on this huge hike. I don't know. We probably, for the afternoon and the evening, we probably put in, I don't know, at least 8 or 9 miles.
Wow.
Just from camp.
I thought you were going to say that.
Back on the horses and everything?
No. We did it all.
Foot.
We left the horses at camp. Yeah. We probably could have taken the horses, but we didn't. You know, we just
went on a little hike.
Yep.
We went up
over a big ridge and got into these trees. The one thing about this place is there are meadows everywhere, but we never really saw any elk in the meadows too much because all the grass around there was like basically brown and dead.
Yeah.
But in the trees, all the grass, there was lots of green shoots everywhere. So they were all just hanging out in the trees. And we had some encounters. We had a bull bugling. It seemed like he kind of wanted to play. And Brandon was like, "Okay, Ross, your turn. I missed my shot. It's your turn." So I'm trying to go through the woods and his bugling. And then we get to within 100 yards. So I just kind of stop. I'm like, okay, he's going to be, because you can see in the trees fairly well. I'm like, okay, let's just wait to see if we can see where they're at. And then Braden lifts off the bugle, and then the whole world just goes. That bull took his cows and just disappeared. Never.
No, he didn't want any part of that.
Nothing. Nothing. And so what it turned out after, a few days of hearing bugles, and when you were a long ways away, they would bugle back. But if you got within 100 yards, they would take off. So we figured the rut was basically over. Like they were done fighting with each other. They all had their own little groups of cows, and they were just waiting for one to come into estrus. But they didn't want anything to do with any other bulls, because it happened a couple times where we were coming in to calls, and as soon as we got within that 100 yards, you'd think, okay, buddy, I'm here to fight. Where are you? But they would just disappear.
But now you're trying to figure out that chess game, right? So now you're putting the pieces to the puzzle all together, and
right.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to say when he heard that first shot, when he went over there, it was that guy on foot.
Oh,
yeah. Like son of a gun.
We did end up running into him again, but I can tell that later. But so that night we ended up sitting in this really. I ended up just calling it the Grand Meadow because it was the biggest meadow that was up there, huge. And it was kind of in a saddle, so you thought, it'd be in a place where they would cross, and there was a creek going through there and everything. Anyway, when we got to go back to camp because it was starting to get dark, I went to go pick up my gun, and I heard a tink. I was like, what the hell was that? So I just held my gun, and I just kind of shook it. My scope was going like this.
Oh man.
The rear mount.
Yeah.
I don't know if the screw broke or if it just came loose, but I didn't have any tools, and Braden didn't have any tools, and we're sitting there, and he's like, well, let's just get back to camp. We'll try to figure it out. And we got back to camp, and he's like, well, I can ride my horse really fast back to the truck, and then drive into town, which would have been, for him to go to town and come back would have been a whole day episode. But he's like, I can take it to my gunsmith, and we can get this fixed and get it bore sided, and then we'll bring it back here, and then we'll just shoot just to see where you're at. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. So we have one gun. We'll just split it between me and Brandon. And Brandon, he was the one who actually offered it. He's like, no, you don't need to go nowhere. Just use the one gun. So that was the whole first day.
Dang, that's a long day.
Yeah.
We got a lot of action that first day.
And then we got up the second day, and we actually went back to that, what I called the Grand Meadow. And we actually, right when we got there, a cow was coming out into the meadow, and she caught us on the edge, and she sat there and looked at us for quite a while. And the meadow was so big, like you could tell she was talking, like you could hear, see her turn her head, and through the binoculars you could see her mouth move. She was barking or something, but you couldn't hear it. That's how big this meadow was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a very large meadow.
Yeah, it was huge. And next thing you know, she just turns around and goes right back into the trees. And we're pretty sure, she was the cow sent out to make sure everything's cool.
The pawn.
Right.
I've seen those before. Many times.
And who knows what would have been behind her. But so that was that first morning. And then we just hiked back to camp after taking this big, long, because Braden had actually never been into this one canyon before. He's always wanted to go in there. But so anyway, I don't even know how many miles it was. It had to have been a 5 or 6 mile loop we did in this one draw. And then we had to come back over the ridge to the draw to go to our camp. And I'm like, well, I really would like to go back and get my GoPro. And he's like, yeah. He says, let's just take the horses. Well, Brandon was still kind of struggling with the altitude or whatever. And so he's like, hey, guys, I'm just going to stay here at camp and I'll glass, because we had a really good glassing spot from there. And he's like, if I see something, we can maybe make a play on it for tomorrow. So Braden and I get on the horses and we go looking for the GoPro. And the problem is the day before when we were up there, the whole top was snowed. And so I'm like, well, this is going to be really easy. We're just going to follow our tracks, because we only went to one ridge and then we stopped and came back. So we never went any farther. So we'll just follow the tracks until we get to the camera. All the snow melted. So in the draw, we had an idea where we went, and we're like, okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure it was this ridge we were on. Anyway, I don't know. It took us 25 minutes to a half hour. He was on the horse. I was walking around on foot. And then I was just about ready to call it. I'm like, hey, we only got like an hour light left. Let's go try to salvage a hunt. I just have to tell the wife, sorry, the GoPro's gone. I'll have to go buy another one.
Oh, darn.
Yeah. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, I found it. Well, it fell into a bush. And we both walked over it with the horses and my feet multiple times. But he's like, he just happened to be at the right angle where the sun hit the screen of the GoPro, and he just saw that little glimmer. So he walked over, and sure enough, there it was.
Wow.
Dang.
So we grabbed the GoPro, and I'm like, okay. He's like, well, let's go this way. And I'm like, if we go that way, it's just going to be, we're not going to get back to camp until like a couple hours after dark. I'm like, let's just go up to this knob right here. And from that top, because we kind of came over that earlier the day before, you can see a whole bunch. I said, let's just see if we can't find where a bull is tonight. And if we need to, we can make a plan for the morning. Well, we get up over there, we park the horses, he ties them to the trees, and we come over the top, and there's a cow. Bam, right there. And she's already looking at us. I'm like, don't move. And we're just standing there. We were probably standing there for 10 minutes. And she didn't, like, how they can stand as long as they can and not move is unbelievable to me.
Like a chair. They got 4 legs. They just stand on them,
Dude, I get fidgety,
Oh, me.
I have to rock back and forth. I have to, like, move my hand, I'm just sitting there like, okay, come on. And then finally she turned like she was going to walk away, but then she just kind of came through this clearing. Well, once she came through the clearing in front of her, I saw some more movement. And I'm like, I tried to get my binocs up, and all I saw was a butt. I'm like, dang it. That was a pretty light colored animal. I think it was a bull. And she walked across the thing, and I was still standing at this point, but there was a nice rock in front of me. So I took off my pack and I laid it on the rock, and I laid the gun down, and we were just standing there. And then all of a sudden, over the ridge to the left, I just saw this rack come over the top and then into the open, and I was like, bull. And I didn't care how big it was. I was there for the adventure. I was going to go home with meat. And so I laid down, and I'm like, Braden, how far is it? How far is it? And he's having problems getting his rangefinder out of his harness, and he's like, okay, it's 230. And I just kind of followed it through the trees. And I've never actually shot Brandon's gun before, right? And so I had a hard time getting a full scope picture, but I eventually did. And then I just followed him through the trees, and as soon as he came to an opening, one shot, and down he went. Dang. And we went. It was getting kind of dark, and we just quartered him out, took the back straps and tenderloin and stuff, and then just hung him up in those trees that you see all around there. Mm-hmm. And then we went back the next morning, and he didn't want to take the quarters out. He wanted to save as much weight on the horses as possible, so we deboned it all that next day. But before we went back, we went for another hunt for Brandon in the morning, and we went back to that Grand Meadow because we saw elk going there and coming back from there every time we've been in there. So we're like, they got to come through this, that, because Brandon wasn't really comfortable with taking a crack shot or anything after the first time. He really wanted to get a good solid rest where he can take time. And we figured this opening would be the best chance for that. Well, nothing came. So, okay, let's go get the meat before the sun hits it and stuff. And so we sent Braden back to go get the horses. And then Brandon and I just took our time and weaved our way up to where he was at. And we ran into some elk, but just couldn't put antlers on anything, unfortunately. But it's a pretty epic trip, and I will say, hunting at 11,000 feet, because, there was a couple times we were probably higher than 11,000 feet. It is something. And I don't know how you can prepare for it. When I got back, I talked to some guys. Some people have said that, those...
altitude masks.
Those masks. But some guys say, those don't work. That's just,
I've heard both ways. Like, that's a gimmick. All it really does is restrict your breathing, which doesn't really help you for altitude sickness or like even altitude training, because restricting your breathing while you're working out is not good anyways. Now you're depriving your muscles of oxygen and all this other stuff.
Right.
But also I've heard on the other end too, like, if you can do all that stuff while barely breathing, you should be able to do that on the mountain.
Right.
Okay. Kind of makes sense, but,
I also heard that from another guy after I got back, of course, there's like a pill that you can take. It's kind of like Dramamine, but it's for elevation, which I'd never heard of that prior to this.
So is it the thinner air that makes people sick, or is it the elevation, the atmospheric pressure? What's causing the sickness?
I think it almost has a mixture of both, and everybody's different. So I've snowboarded at extremely high elevations, and sometimes I'm fine, and other times I feel like I have vertigo, where like I'm just barely moving around and feeling like I'm gonna vomit.
So I have a friend who's a big time hunter. I mean, he's a really good hunter, and he told me when he knows he's going into high, he'll go days in advance because he is guaranteed. He's guaranteed to have altitude sickness. Mm-hmm. So he gives himself at least 2 to 3 days at that elevation to get acclimated before he starts hunting.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, I almost feel like it'd be more of an atmospheric thing on your ears, because I have vertigo. I get it pretty regular. Not major recently, but having that different air pressure on your ears, it would make you kind of off balance and, stimulate that.
Yeah.
And then you would probably be the perfect candidate for taking one of those pills because it's supposed to help with all that stuff.
Yeah, I think they just said like meclizine, I think is what it is.
I don't know.
It's an anti-motion pill or something.
I don't know what it is, but it is similar to like Dramamine.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't, I didn't have like inner ear problems, or it was just more labor intensive to breathe, especially when you were hiking. More effort to move your legs because you weren't getting like
enough oxygen. Yeah.
And then, with a headache, and then also that first day and a half, I didn't really have an appetite.
Mm.
Like I ate one meal a day because I just couldn't. I mean, I drank water like crazy, but as far as food, we just didn't really eat that much.
Shit, I'm gonna eat when I kill something.
And have some
next meal I have is gonna be elk heart.
Yeah. But it was a really cool trip. Unfortunately, Brandon did not get a bull. Just didn't work out. We had a storm coming in, and Braden's like, "We do not want to be here when it snows," because that was probably going to be. The snow wasn't going to melt again, probably, And he's like, if it gets too deep, the horses have a real issue. So we decided to head out 2 days earlier than we planned on. And, I wanted to stay, but Brandon's like, no, let's go. He was struggling and already missed.
But the opportunity was there.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. We had our opportunities every day.
Yeah, and that's what you want out of a hunt.
Right.
I mean, dropping a bull, that's the cherry on top, right?
Right.
So, the experience, the actual hunt, the scenery, the camaraderie.
The scenery was phenomenal. And another thing to top off this trip, I'm trying to video as much as I can because I want to put it on for my channel.
Mm-hmm.
At night, it got really cold. Well,
so it was just sucking the battery life.
I had 6 batteries for my GoPro. Well, one for the first day and a half, my GoPro was up on a hill. Right,
so that battery's done.
I couldn't even use that one. And then my Canon, I had 3 batteries for that. They all got drained the very first night because it got so cold.
Yep.
And we were sleeping in the Seek Outside bug out shelter, and
I was gonna ask what shelters were you guys using, and
so
it's still fairly lightweight.
We didn't get to as far as he wanted to get to because one of the passes that he really wanted to get to, the snow was too deep, and he has a wall tent back there with actual seriously wood stove and all that stuff. But we didn't get that far because we just decided we were seeing a lot of elk sign where we were at. And he's like, hey, let's just hunt here for a day. We'll put out the little Seek Outside, and then if we end up not finding elk, then we'll go.
Now, is that one stove compatible as well? Did it have did you guys have a mini stove in that? Or?
We had, some kind of Seek Outside stove, super lightweight, folds down smaller than that laptop.
Yeah, a little titanium
but
deal.
They don't hold heat very well. Like as soon as that fire goes out, it's cold, So when you're sleeping, and that's what happened. My batteries, I tried to put them in a bag surrounded by clothes and stuff, but it just.
So what I've learned is that you put those batteries
in your sleeping bag?
In the sleeping bag with you. Yep. The Canon or, any camera that you're using,
right?
That can survive wherever.
Right.
But those batteries need to have that heat. So even when I'm hiking around in the cold, if I have a jacket with the inner pocket,
right,
I'll slide those in there, and then it'll get the heat off my body,
right,
so that it doesn't freeze those up. Because I've had batteries died in September, archery hunting. All of a sudden, you get that temperature drop, and batteries are in your pack or something.
Right.
You go to slide one in, all of a sudden it's half life.
Yeah.
So now I've found my little tricks because that's all I do is film when we're out hunting. I'm usually filming.
I thought you were going to say his tricks. I was like, oh, damn, don't say it.
I try to use my body heat,
Right.
to try to keep those batteries from draining. And it's just something that you learn over time. Because, I mean, obviously I wasn't like that. I was having dead batteries all the time.
I would think a good solution to that is if you have like a little styrofoam battery box, which is, can be pretty small and very lightweight. Mm-hmm. Just pop a hand warmer in that sucker, and they're good.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of those. I mean, the hand warmer is not going to be too hot for the batteries, but if it's in a little box. I mean, that should be plenty of heat.
I think. Well, it also depends. Like if I'm at a camp that I'm normally at, I have my truck there and I have all kinds of supplies. That wouldn't be something you'd think about. That. But we were trying to go as light as we possibly could, even though we had horses. So I just stuffed everything into my little GoPro bag, thinking, okay, all my batteries in one spot, and it ended up. I've had a YouTube channel now for a couple of years, and I have the worst luck when it comes to cameras. It's either the record didn't happen, or the batteries die, or I forgot the SD card. Like if I had the money, I'd like to have my own camera guy. But I also like filming it myself. But yeah, so my learning curve is. I still got a ways to go before
you know what we all do.
My learning curve,
I mean, to be honest,
is a circle. It just continues, never ending.
We all do, really. I mean, if you're, in this realm of filming your hunts, it's not easy. I do a lot of solo hunts, and most of the time, I've got to the point to where I just don't even set up the camera. I do some B-roll floating head stuff,
right?
And then the camera goes away, and then boom, I fire, and then now we're going to go see the kill because I'm not going to be fiddle farting around with my camera and miss the shot and miss that opportunity. Yes, that's what people want to see. Right. Obviously, that's going to get probably the most views, but it's also extremely hard. But if you want that challenge, throw that camera in there, and I mean, we're doing it, right?
Right.
Like, that's what we're doing,
right?
But for people out there that are new, if you start fiddle farting with your camera and miss, the bull of a lifetime.
So what
we're not all Remy Warren.
Yeah, I went to 360 cam.
Okay.
So if it sets up like this, it records front and back. But where the thickness of this camera, it actually marries the two images together. So you can do a 3D world where you can just spin the globe and look at it. So if you're hunting with a bow and you have this, you can draw back. It would show you drawing back.
Uh-huh.
And as you fire, as the arrow goes out, you can actually stop the film, spin the camera around at a different speed, and then watch your arrow go forward to the animal with the one camera.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 360 cam, that's not in my arsenal.
Here you go, you can have it,
Dave. Just when I go hunting, I'm by myself.
Didn't even know a thing existed like that. That's cool, though.
Yeah.
So the 360
it's awesome.
Records everything, and you can zoom in and out on it.
Right.
So it's pretty neat. And
you can have it to where it looks kind of weird. It has like
Does it record both things at the same time?
Yeah. Right when you hit the record button, it's recording everything in 360.
Uh-huh. So,
but you can have it to where Dave knows more about this. But when in post, you can have it actually look like a regular GoPro. So like if you wanted to flip it, you can have it look at you regular, and then flip it and have it look out that way regular, or you can have it have this like weird abstract thing. It's crazy.
It'll film in the orb.
Yeah, it'll look like a little circle.
So it can zoom out to where it looks like you're standing on the world. So if you're like hiking a ridge in Utah and you had that 360, you can put it on like a 6-foot stick because its blind spot is where this thing attaches. It can't see this width. This is the only thing it's missing. But because there's a camera here and a camera here, it's basically when the recordings come together, they're back to back.
Huh.
So you miss, if you had a stick on this, and say my arm was 10 feet long, it won't record my arm. It would just record where those lenses are. So if the lens can see my hand, it would record that.
Right.
So that's how they get those shots where people are up on a bridge or on a motorcycle, and they're jumping through the air like crazy, and they're like, how'd they do that? And it's like, there's a stick with the GoPro, and the blind spot is the stick. So they can zoom out and catch that bike flying in the air.
Right.
And it looks like they're 10 feet away, but it's really like 4 inches from your head.
We'll show you some footage.
Yeah,
My wife is not going to like that you just told me about that camera.
He's like,
Yeah.
what? He's like,
You know what? That takes me back. We're going to bring that camera for their next turkey hunt.
which one?
That 360.
That's what I used.
No, it isn't.
Oh, I used the regular one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the 360. I used it all elk season, though.
Getting your face would have been awesome.
When I did the this elk season with Luke, when I drew my bow back, I was sitting there. I was like, I'm going to try this thing out. So I drew back, and I was sitting there because we were just listening. It links Bluetooth right to your phone, so I edited it right there. I was like, shit, that's freaking badass, dude. Like, it shows everything.
Right.
So you start with the draw, and it shows your arrow coming back, and then it shows you just fully back. And then I was like, okay, I'll spin this around, do this, and then you can make it look like it's out here from you. It's crazy.
Yeah, the 360 cam is pretty cool.
I'll have to check into that.
360 cam, the batteries, it's the same as the GoPro. The batteries go way fast in 360 because it's recording every single thing.
Right.
GoPro, 1 or 2 batteries a day, but that you can record probably 20 minutes. So I only flick that on if I think something's going down.
Right.
We also have like solar battery chargers. I can show you where to get those. And then you can plug in any battery charger.
USB port.
Yep. So if you're sitting glassing, that's usually when I'm charging batteries. Sitting glassing, I'll plug that in, have it all out, and it's super small. It's like this big.
Right.
And
I've seen those.
I'll charge my phone. I'll charge my camera batteries. I'll charge everything with that. So like, man, if you should have called me. I would have just came out and filmed the dang thing. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been.
But yeah. But yeah.
We did a duck hunt last year when I first got that, and I was trying to figure out, like, how does it work? So I put it on the stick, had it out in front of the stands, maybe like 3 feet, and it connects to your phone, so you can turn it on to record from your phone.
Right.
And sitting there, see some ducks coming in, so I just press record. And they just flew in, and we shot them. And then I got there doing a little deal. And as soon as I started editing it, I was like filming the ducks coming in, and the camera moves at the pace, so you can like block that image and follow that image. And then as soon as I got over, you hear, take them. And it just quickly pans to us. Layouts pop open. Boom, 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 boom. And it switches over and you see ducks go bloop, 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 bloop.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's super sick. But it's like a mini cameraman. And you just control everything, all the angles right there.
Cool.
A little bit different for a rifle hunt. You do need something like a larger camera, to really zoom in and get those, far shots on a rifle hunt.
Right.
But if you're doing any type of B-roll or capturing the shot,
Right.
that 360 cam is awesome.
Cool.
And I would say that it's probably a necessity if you really want to capture the moment, because you're going to see, if there's 5 guys, say, Brandon and Braden and you guys are all together, and you guys are like, oh, get down, he's, 200, and he's over there, he's looking for his rangefinder. You're going to get all those shots.
Right.
And you can pan and go back and forth to the guy like, oh, he's moving to the trees. How far is he, Brandon? He's like, oh, shit,
Right.
230 yards. And the camera would switch to him, then you're back down, you're like, okay, boom, and you have a second camera recording the long shot.
Right.
Then you would see all the excitement, and that would just, I'm never going to hunt without it again. Just because those moments capture the entire world around you.
So I was going to say, getting back to the hunt, not that I like talking to the camera
We're
stuff.
techies,
don't get me wrong. we ran into that guy on foot again, and he came by, and he's like, yeah, I think this was on the second day. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back down lower, But he had an in-reach, and Braden had an in-reach, and they switched their information. Well, not much longer after they switched their information, he's like, well, if I was to get an elk down, and I pay you, would you take the elk out for me?
Yeah.
This is on the day that I think we were leaving. He's like, nope, sorry, we're already headed out of the woods. We got an elk. I'm not
Tagged out, buddy. Sorry.
I'm not coming back till next year.
Yeah. If it's still good next year, I'll take it down for you.
Right. But yeah, it was one to remember for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, and thank you for sharing this story with us. But what are you doing right now for you're basically composing a letter for this hunt?
Oh, so social media, the picture got out, and I don't know if someone I know sent this guy the picture or if he actually saw it, because he never told me how he saw the picture. He just said, I just got a message from this guy, and he's like, "Hey, I'm some kind of director for Eastman's Magazine, and I'd like to hear the story on this bull." And I was like, "Sure, I can write a story." So I haven't started writing it yet, just because of all the stuff last week with the commission meetings and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna sit down and I'll start doing the writing, and hopefully it's a good enough story that they'll put it in their magazine.
That'd be awesome.
They're pretty picky. Like he sent me the information, like what kind of pictures they want, and all that stuff. So, but I've written a couple stories before. One magazine, Horns and Hooks.
Yep.
I was in that one. And then Western Hunter magazine, I was in that one for my man room. They had a thing called like, I don't know, it was like every other month they had like a man cave episode or thing in the back, and so mine was featured in there that year. But yeah, it's cool writing stories and getting the feedback from people, what they think from it and like from it, and yeah, it's pretty neat.
Dreams, man.
Yeah, and then
one of these days
I'm learning it. I was using that Filmora for all my video stuff, but now I'm using Adobe, and that's a lot more advanced. So my film probably won't be coming out for a while. So while I learn all the tricks and the trades, and
I've switched. So I actually use a free app. You can either use it on your phone or you can use it on your computer. And it's super easy to use, super user friendly. Adobe is super advanced,
right?
And it can also be extremely expensive because now you have to pay like a monthly fee, depending on what you want to use, because that fee can go up if you want more options.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So I use CapCut.
Well, I have CapCut on my phone. I didn't know they had it online.
Oh, yeah, they have it on the PC as well.
Huh.
And it's free unless you want, obviously, more options, but it's a really cheap way to get your films out.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know who uses it, but I mean, you can have a simple film that can, explode. I mean, Cy is one of those guys. He doesn't really add a whole lot of stuff to his films.
Right.
And he produces awesome stuff, but you could edit it as long as you're not trying to get too far in depth with color grading.
Right.
I never really dived into color grading stuff. Only because when I'm filming it, I just try to at least get it to match what the scenery is and everything like that. But I mean, some of the color grading you can, make stuff brighter or, take some of the bleaching out and all this other stuff. I believe CapCut does that, but I don't really dive into those types of things.
Now, like with the Filmora, I basically, I put in all the clips that I want to do. And you can do your voiceovers and your overlays and things like that. But yeah, I don't mess with the speed of the film or the.
You got to try some of the slow-mo stuff. So if you ever shoot in like 1080, if you do 1080p,
right,
and you do 120 frame,
right,
try to cut one of those and just mess with slow motion.
Right,
it's fun. If you're shooting 4K, you can do 60 frame and you can slow it down a little bit, but it doesn't really get into that dramatic slow motion unless you have a 4K that can run 120 frames, which not a lot of cameras can do that unless you're spending a buttload of money.
Right. No, I just have a Canon M50,
Oh man, you're shooting the same thing I got.
Yeah.
I have the same thing. That's what I shoot with. Yeah. I'm actually going to be upgrading, hopefully this next year, to either a R7 or R8 Canon camera. They say that the R7 actually, for the price point, because obviously, I mean, you can spend a lot more money, but for the price point, it shoots better in like shooting wildlife and outdoors types of stuff. Plus, it's like weather sealed.
Oh,
so out hunting, you're in the weather, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, cool.
I know my M50 is not. So when it starts raining, it's like, duck for cover, get underneath trees, get that thing covered up.
It rains a lot here too. That's kind of the downside.
But yeah,
I learned that after I got that camera. I was like, it says weatherproof. It's like, no. You're like, well, shit, I should have, I think another $500, I could have got one that was weatherproof. It's like the things you don't know before you invest.
Well, now all these R ones, they all use the same lenses. So now it's just more or less just upgrading your bodies.
Right.
Yeah. So now Canon is now all to those RF lenses.
Right.
So, which is nice.
Well, let's take a break, and we come back. We'll talk about the commission meetings and what's going on.
And that is actually going to be part 2. So this episode is going to be coming out here in the next week, and then part 2 is going to be coming after the following week, and it's going to be about the commission meeting.
Yeah, before we sign off.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to do a hunt like this, look up Lone Ridge Outfitting. They're great guys, and they have multitude. Like if you have a special tag that you need help with, especially if it's in the Wasatch, Steve's really your guy. I think he won like Outfitter of the State a couple times.
That is awesome, and we'll have the description or the links in the description below. So
yeah, Lone Ridge Outfitting. They're really good guys, and they really work their ass off for you.
If you lose your GoPro 3 times, they'll find it 4.
That's right.
They'll come back with 2. Like, look what we got. Ross was here. Yeah, it's awesome. All right, well, with that, we'll check out.